We are transitioning to the next panel, AI for prospecting. Kerry Cunningham, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Julia. Good to be here. And it's good to be with this illustrious panel that we have. That last one was crazy illustrious. That was a lot of big stars in B2B. But we've got our own here, including some old friends of mine. So I'm very excited for this session. I think we'll just dive right in because I know we've got a limited amount of time and we'll have a lot to talk about. So what I thought would make sense is we'll do a round of introductions, and if we could keep the introductions to just something pretty quick, I'll model what I think pretty quick is, and then we'll dive in. All right, so I'm Kerry Cunningham. If you've never encountered me before, I work for 6 Sense. I run a research and thought leadership practice here, and I spent about 8 years at SiriusDecisions and Forrester prior to that, and had a lot of fun there. So I'll leave it with that, and then I'll just go around the list as I see it right now. And so maybe I'll go to Heath next, if you could introduce yourself.
Bringing me right off of vacation mode and put me on the spot.
Same here, same here.
I'm really excited to be here with everybody, seeing some common faces. So my background, I've been scaling and building commercial organizations and revenue teams for the past 15 years. Currently over at Mixmax, and we are really leveraging AI to focus on how can we humanize sales, which I think is a big piece that has been lost in this industry. So excited to be here.
Right, thank you. And then Justin.
Oh, I am the co-founder of Hardscale Exchange, and I like to wear cool hats. I'm a big admirer of everyone on the on the show.
I think I've got the idea here. I'm going to go on my own list. So, Kevin.
Yep, happy to go. So I lead the marketing team at Common Room. We're actually building an AI product for prospecting and pipe gen. My background is from leading growth at Segment and Retool, so lots of perspective on PLG and scaling companies there. Yeah, happy to be here and share what we're doing on the AI space.
Great, thanks. Ruth?
Oh, you're on mute, Ruth.
Hi, I'm Ruth Stevens, a longtime consultant in B2B marketing, and these days I'm doing more teaching than consulting. I'm at NYU Stern teaching in the executive MBA program, and today I'm actually in Bangalore teaching at the Indian Institute of Management for about a month. Happy to be here.
Great. Thanks for being here. Howard.
Hi, I'm Howard Brown. I'm CEO and founder of Revenue.io. I'm a 3-time founder. I'm also a former clinical psychologist. I study how people communicate, and we've been using AI for the past 7 years to help people augment human intelligence with AI. Glad to be here.
Wow, fascinating background. Talk about some other stuff. Oleg, my old friend Oleg.
Kerry, great seeing you. It's been a while. Everybody, Oleg Reginsky, CEO and founder of People AI. Been doing this for 10 years, and we are building for 10 years now AI for large enterprises that understands your full relationship with a customer across all CRMs, all user interfaces, all communications, etc. And it just happened that the same AI is able to do really, really good prospecting with large enterprises as one of the capabilities we discovered. And before that, I actually started my career as an inside salesperson, and then after that ran marketing. So this is very relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rohan.
Everyone, Rohan. I'm one of the founders of Nooks. We are an AI dialing platform that helps use AI on everything cold call related. So everything calling related, from data to research to actually dialing and making your dials. My background, I'm actually an engineering background, but when we started Nooks, for the first 4 years, I led the go-to-market team, and then grew that to around 20, and now I lead product. So yeah, excited to be here.
Great, glad to have you. Julia, did I get everybody?
I think we're missing Shreya.
Shreya, okay.
Hey guys, I'm Surya, co-founder of Persona AI. My background is I used to work at LinkedIn in customer data platforms and in ML, and excited to be here. Persona does data consolidation and GTM automations. So happy to talk about all things AI, data, and agents related.
Great.
And hi,
All right.
Kerry. This is
oops.
Mary Kay. I am this go-to-market officer, chief officer for Alita. We are a customer experience management platform. And my background is, go-to-market, leading sales, marketing, product, both internally at B2B companies and also on the outside as I ran an agency for about a decade, helping companies as on the agency side as well.
Got it. Great. Now, could you say your company name again, please?
Sure, it's Alida, A-L-I-D-A. I wish all of us had our company names on our names, by the way.
We're going to ask for that from...
Yeah, I don't think what yet. Am I supposed to go now, Julia? Awesome. My name is Gabe. Speaking of agencies, I'm the CEO of Alley-Oop. We're an SDR and prospecting agency, been around for 15 years. Worked with large enterprise and startups and founder-led sales and build out the SDR functions and support those SDR functions for teams. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's great. I looked at your website before coming on. I ran a third party at the time. The language we used was third party teleservices organization for a long time. We had 400 or 500 reps at one point, all B2B stuff. It's changed in the 15, 16 years since I was in that business for sure. Very cool stuff. All right, so before we get into the discussion of how to use AI and why to use AI, I thought 2 bits of mental housekeeping that we ought to do, kind of eat our veggies before we get to the ice cream. And that is defining what it is that we're talking about when we talk about prospecting. So one of the things I noticed in looking at websites of folks, there's a couple of words you could use for things that you all are doing. One is the processing, interpretation, use of signals, and the other one is automating processes. And there may be others, but those are 2 that I noticed. But what are we automating? What are we putting more intelligence behind? So prospecting in the old days would have been outbound phone calls, emails. Are we including in this discussion the follow-up on inbound marketing outputs, leads, if you will? Should it all be hybrid? Does it always, or should it all include multi-threading? So what are we talking about here? Let's just get some agreement on that, some consensus on what we're talking about here first. I saw a lot of heads nodding. If lips could part and move, that would be good. And then we'd have something to talk about.
I was trying to raise my hand and be courteous to other people, but I guess since you mentioned one of the things that we kind of define at Common Room, which is signals, and like the signal-based space, especially like just buying signals is what we're talking about here, is a pretty hot topic, and I do think that is just part of the new modern way of SDRs and outbound reps and pipe generation. It's like finding buying signals from wherever they are, ingesting those with AI potentially, but also just with technology. And that just becomes like such a better way to have the context of what you need to do prospecting the right way and also get those higher conversion rates. So I would definitely include the spectrum of buying signals as a way to inform prospecting. It's just kind of like how it's done nowadays. I think the conversion rates compared to some like cold outbound where you're just like looking at someone's profile and using their alma mater to personalize something like doesn't really work. So I would definitely say that that's part of the definition here.
Yeah, I would say, I would argue that it involves everything, except maybe customer retention or expansion. So that includes everything in the modern marketing toolkit, but begins typically with data. And the coolest thing about AI is that it seems to be applicable at every step, in every angle of prospecting in B2B that I've ever run across.
Yeah,
to what Kevin mentioned, the signals is everything, and there is a very human limit of how much signal you can process before you write that email or make the phone call. We're talking about everything from industry news to company news to your 10Ks, 10Qs, all that stuff. That's external things, plus your intent, what you're doing at 6 cents, and so on and so on. There is probably 128 to half a megabyte of data you need to consume as a human externally before you produce it. But then there is tens of megabytes of internal data you have to consume before you actually start prospecting. Every call you've made before, every email you've sent, who do you know, who do you not know, who are the new people in this company. So in my mind, processing signals is aggregating probably 3 to 5 megabytes of text in your brain or in your AI before you make every phone call or every email go out, or before you choose who to talk to. And then obviously agentic stuff, so automating processes and doing that at massive scale, so that we are on the path of a company being able to saturate basically every prospect in your TAM with a highly personalized note, highly personalized outreach in minutes, hours, not quarters and years.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Gabe, you had your hand up. So you guys are putting your hands up already, which is really great Zoom etiquette. We might as well keep doing that. I'm all for a free for all, but I like the hands up.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for starting the politeness. I appreciate it. No, the way we're doing is we're using AI, to your point, Ruth, against every single piece of the prospecting channel, right? Like, 10, 15 years ago, market automations came in and, terminated all the SDRs. And then we realized we had to hire them all back because it wasn't just everyone signing up every day because they got emails. So I see that kind of happening again, but just at, a much bigger impact because of AI. But the way we're using it, I mean, we're using, technology like Nooks, Rohan, what they've been able to create is amazing, to use AI signals to determine whether or not someone picks up the phone or when we should be calling them. And that's an intent signal. We're seeing some, obviously huge things 6 Sense is doing and others that are creating opportunities online. But in our world, when we're making a phone call, we're having a conversation, the only thing we really care about is timing. Everything else using AI really could figure everything else out almost right before we have the call. And so if we can find out the timing and the need, that's what we want to pass over to our clients. And so intent is the name of the game when it comes to prospecting at this point.
It's great. So I'm gonna go in the order that I saw the hands up, and I'm just going to mention on the topic of timing. I think we know from a number of different pieces of research right now, was something that we should have known all along, which is that a very small percentage of anybody's addressable market's actually in market at any given time. And you're not likely to create a brand new buying process from nothing when there was nothing for whatever your enterprise thing is. That just isn't really how it works, right? You can begin the consideration of a problem. We're talking about many months, quarters, and years for that to come to fruition. So let me go to Heath, and then Mary, Rohan, Howard, and then Sri in that order. Remember that order.
Yeah, I think that you make some really good points. I'm going to throw a little caveat on it. Is you talked about the signals and the automation. And so I think signals, when done right, is a great tool. I think that signals, when not done right, it's just noise, right? I think it's about stacking signals the right way. I think automation, the same thing, is when done right. I think that there's a lot of ways that people are using AI today, and it's just to do things more at scale, do things more at mass. Where I think the real power, and this is where I'm going to add in the third piece, is the humanization. I think where AI is actually very, very powerful when done right is actually enabling, revenue teams to have the right conversations, to connect with the right person at the right time through the right channel. And that's not spoken about enough. And so I think it's something that's a really important topic, because when it's not done right, we're just adding more noise. And I think it's also important for us to understand that the buyer journey has changed. And I think it's our job to leverage AI to make sure that we're actually enabling revenue teams to meet our buyers where our buyers are at, rather than trying to force the traditional old school mentality of forcing them to get into the sales window. And I think that's where AI is actually a very, very powerful piece.
Great. Perfect. Rohan.
Well, yeah, I'll add to that. I think, we talked about structuring data. I think AI is really good at structuring large amounts of data and providing like one of the things Nooks does is we have like call prep notes that can summarize exactly why you're reaching out and aggregate a bunch of sources. And so I'll add another one though that isn't really talked about, hasn't been mentioned yet, but I think AI can be really valuable in the coaching and enablement side of things. One of the things that we do is we have role play simulators. You can practice. So before you get on a conversation with a cold call, you can practice and make sure that live conversation matters. We have AI scorecards as well, where you can managers can now coach at skill and really identify the real opportunities for improvement. And so I think there's also the human side of like, how do you empower managers to use AI to be more effective and more powerful? So that's another kind of third bucket, I would say, where AI can be really impactful.
Perfect. Yep. Mary, we'll go to you. I think the way I see the hand raises on my screen is probably in order, and I'm just going to go with it.
All right, thanks so much. First of all, I agree with so many of the comments here. Ruth, you talked about the time when SDRs were getting let go in masses, and then people realized, oh wait, now we need to bring them back because it isn't quite that simple. I actually see the same thing happening with AI tools right now. There's so much hype around the promise, a lot of promise around efficiency, but not on effectiveness. And I think that that's where we need to really focus next. Not to mention, Scott Brinker's MarTech landscape came out, and there's over 11,000 tools. By the way, there's 1,000 in something like 26 categories just are in AI. So like, how does a marketing go-to-market leader navigate that, right? And we can bring in tools that promise efficiency. But again, it's how do you make sure they're effective? And that means they have to be integrated to the tech stack that you have, and they have to be used by the whole team. And that's not just sales, that's your whole go-to-market team, right? So when I think about AI and the tools that we talk about, there is huge promise in what they're capable of. But again, how do you make it effective by use and integration? And I think that's the horizon that we're facing right now.
Yeah, I think it's right. And I think, the focus on efficiency and effectiveness and foregrounding effectiveness, I think a good look, uncharitably, I'll admit, at the last 20 years of B2B marketing as having gotten much better at doing the wrong thing faster and at greater scale. And we're very, very good at that now. I mean, but the good news is all of that can be used to do the right thing. There's like nothing, I think, that's been built that can't be used better, but it needs to be used better. Surya, what do you think?
Well, yeah, 100% agree with all the points said. And I think one of the concepts that I really, drive my thesis in building Persona is this concept of synthetic AI. We've seen generative AI being all about, generating long form and like more is better. But I really think, especially for companies using AI, especially in go-to-market and their workflow, sometimes less is better, because that less should be more accurate. It should be consolidated. And especially around this whole concept of signals, we see a lot of hype around that. Just because a signal works from one company does not mean that it will work for your company. So I think step one is really knowing what is the signals that drive conversion for you today. And whenever I get on calls with customers, I'm not saying, let's not try to reinvent the wheel starting off, right? Let's try to take a process that you're already doing, that you already know works, and scale that. And I think that's the first frontier of AI that we're going to be solving before going into new frontiers.
Howard, you've had your hand up for a long time now.
Yeah, I feel like we're all doing the wave here, which it's good manners. A lot of really good points, and I think that effectiveness is really critical, right? We have efficiency, and AI is doing a great job of doing more with less. We're also able to look at the variety of signals to determine who's in market and what they're interested in. The thing that we focus on, which we feel is the most important, is as a buyer, am I experiencing a great sales process? Thinking about that buying experience, and that happens in real time. So I think Oleg talked about the amount of data that we have, and that data is useful, but it's only useful if I can take that data and have a better conversation with those people I'm prospecting. I think we forget that. At the end of the day, it's two human beings connecting. And through our technology, we've done over 1.2 billion conversations. We've transcribed, we've analyzed, we've looked at that data. Now, how do we use that to help people build better relationships? Because at the core of a business relationship, it is a relationship. It's two people connecting. It is about building rapport. It is about connecting. So if we're not looking at how to better connect our salespeople with our buyer, we're missing the point. That's where generative AI, that's where AI is most powerful, because it can process all that data in milliseconds and provide the seller with enough contextual awareness to meet that buyer's need.
If I could, then I'll just jump in and not change the subject, but maybe focus in on a question for a moment. There are two kind of big buckets of use of AI that I see. One is I think of as good old-fashioned AI, which is targeting, essentially. How do we identify the right man? And there's profile, there's timing, there's a bunch of things to it, but are we talking to the right people at the right time in the right company, that kind of thing. And then there's what do we say? How do we say it? Informing those conversations, the intelligence around that. For the longest time, we had really just the good old-fashioned AI, the targeting stuff, and now we have a lot of Gen AI. In the last year, everybody's thinking and talking about Gen AI, when I think there's been not nearly enough done to take advantage of what I think of as the good old-fashioned uses of AI. Like it doesn't, and I think, Howard, to your point, it really doesn't matter what you say or how well you say it if you're saying it to somebody who doesn't care, like who isn't the right person and isn't in market, right? Even if you're saying it to somebody who is not in market, not part of an active buying team, they may take an interest. They aren't going to, they're going to look like a failure to you, at least in the near term, because they're not going to respond in the way that you want. They're not going to become a prospect and a customer just because you said something that was interesting to them. It has to be something that they're going to take some action on in the near future. So I wanted to throw that out there to color the next kind of part of the conversation. And Gabe, you had your hand up.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. And more to Howard's point, I mean, AI to me is like the word marketing, right? There's so many facets to it. Like, what is specifically are you talking about, right? You can use AI to do amazing jobs better. But I think a lot of companies, and no offense to anyone in the room who has these companies, but the reality is you can't replace a human connection with AI. I mean, our team, we have over 100 SDRs. We are literally trying to think of ways to not sound like AI every day. I don't know if that, but we're using AI to do it. Does that make sense? So it's like we're using AI to do our jobs better, more effectively, to have better, authentic human conversations. But if I see a note or an email that goes out and it sounds like it's been built by AI, that's actually a negative thing. So we want to increase our human connections and increase our human conversations, but not replace it. And we're seeing so much buzz right now of that trying to happen. And this is not self-serving, but like it just doesn't affect it. Like I don't trust it. And it's not that I shouldn't trust it or it's not wrong or it's right. It's just when people are trying to be communicating in replace of a human connection using AI, it backfires in our prospecting channel in a big, big way. So that's how we're seeing it. If we can sound like a human, the better we can. I literally don't capitalize my messages when I'm messaging someone on LinkedIn. My mom was an English professor. She hates me for it, but because I know it does, so it doesn't look professional and looked like it was written by AI and it was written by me. So that's what we're doing because we're seeing AI come into places where we think it shouldn't, or it's at least not being, as everyone said, effective.
I don't disagree with any of that, except I would just point back to the fact that almost nobody, if we talk about people who are B2B buyers, they're parts of buying things, almost nobody talks to anybody, and they don't want to talk to anybody until they're very near the end of their buying process. So there's a very important point for a human connection. And when we ask buyers, what they value in all of the interactions they have across their buying journey, the human connection ones are always right at the top, but they put them off to the very last moment. They do not want to do them unless they absolutely have to. And then they're great, which tells me it's really about context and how do we use all of the signals, all of the intelligence that you all have platforms to help with to get to that point where we are saying the right thing to the right person at the right time. Kevin, I'll go to you. I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Oh, sure. I was actually responding to one of Shreya's comments, which was about, not all the signals are the right signals for your company. And I think that's what AI can help us out with, or just like, you don't know until you know. So like a job change signal might be a great signal, but then like website signals could be good. And so that's where you get this, like, if you feed the model, feed data into to the AI, and then it tells you like, oh, these convert at this rate. Like that's kind of like the holy grail. And then also to your point, Kerry, I think it's like something that really goes unsaid, where it's like, okay, all these signals don't really matter if it's not a core buyer, if it's like some intern in some remote region where you can't sell to, like, why even bother? So capturing that, like, is this the right person to reach out to, is like such a, like, half the part of the battle that I feel like no one ever talks about. So I commend you for bringing that point up.
So I want to go to Heath, but I also want to say, so ask the question, so how do we do that? Like, what are the key components of doing that thing, getting to the right person, right company, right buying group, right people, right time, right message?
I love that. I think it leads into one of my first responses is like, before we could even focus on signals, we have to actually know who our ICP is, right? At the end of the day, AI is what we put in is what it's going to put out for us. And so when we actually don't understand who our customer is, where they're hanging out, where they're actually doing their research, it really is just becomes noise again. And so I think, like, for anybody listening in this, like, that is the first most important piece, is like, who's your ICP, who your buyer persona is, what are the jobs to be done? The more that you can understand what you're actually solving for, that is where then AI can help you speed up the process, right? Like, I'll use one perfect example is at one organization that I was launching in North America, we had to build our account-based scoring model by hand, right? And that was a 6-month project using a data science team, where now with AI, we can do that within like minutes. That's the beauty of it. And so, but none of that happens until you actually understand who your ICP is. And then the next piece behind that is like, for Mixmax, like our why is like, how do we actually make sales enjoyable and meaningful? Let's just call it what it is. Sales sucks. Like, nobody enjoys doing cold calling. Nobody enjoys the rejections, but like, that is just the process of what it is. And so I think, to answer your question, Kerry, of like, how do we solve that? That's what we were really focusing on over at Mixmax, is like, how do we actually build intelligent solutions that actually empower revenue teams that focus on what matters? And that's actually having human connections with customers. And then automating the rest, right? I think the other problem in the market is effectiveness, that you hit on as well. Reps are actually like 30% of their time is spent on actual revenue generating activities. The rest of that time is spent on admin work, which every single revenue person hates absolutely doing. And so question number one is like, how can we actually increase that 30% to even, let's say, 50%? Like that 50%, 20% delta, that is a meaningful increase in an organization. And so for us, it is to that point of like, how do you know your ICP? How do we help you actually target the right customer? And then also AI is like, how do we help you actually automate building sequences? Revenue teams and reps are not great at building sequences. That is where AI, we can actually digest the data to understand, hey, you're going after this industry based off of your historical win rates. Like, this is the type of sequence structure and multi-threading structure that we suggest. All of those are all helping of how to reps be more effective. And then I think the third piece of that is like, automate the rest of it. Automate the stuff that we're spending our time doing. And that's the admin work, updating next steps, updating notes, like all of those. To your point, Ruth, like that's how we're actually going to help set up the retention side of the business, the expansion side of the business. And then we can continue to use leverage product signals and compact that with stuff like Common Room, with second party and third party, to actually understand, like, is there churn risk? Is there upsell opportunity with these customers? And I think like that's where when you automate those pieces, and then you really help the effectiveness of reps on actually having the right conversation through the right channel with the right person. That to me is where like the beauty of AI can truly be unlocked.
Perfect. Rohan, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, I'll say one interesting perspective I'll bring, because a lot of our customers, they make calls and they do outbound calls, which is, I think, does a couple of things. One, Gabe, you were mentioning earlier, like, how do you stand out? Because the reality is that it's hard on a LinkedIn DM to not look like AI. like it's really hard. And so obviously having a real conversation, especially on a channel where it's illegal to not use to use any kind of AI, is one way to stand out. So there's like channel ways to stand out, but we're also seeing like a lot of people standing out from AI with like the first party signals that they have. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're going to use like someone changing jobs based on LinkedIn, there's 20 other buyers that all have that same signal and they can all do the same outreach to the person. But if you have some information on whether it's a closed lost opportunity or whether it's a call you made to someone at that account 4 months ago that said they were interested, that's a really unique signal that no one else has. And so you're going to stand out when you do that kind of outreach. And so we are seeing people kind of invest in that kind of like really just getting engagements. You know, intent data gets you so far, but if you actually have a conversation with someone at that account, they're going to tell you what's actually happening. It doesn't have to be your buyer. It can be anyone really at the account that's even somewhat related, and you can get information on how you can better target and figure out what's happening. So do you see a lot of like more reliance on like first party data as opposed to like third party signals?
Yep, good perspective. Ole.
Kerry, I'm about to throw in a contrarian thought, as usual.
Good.
So we spoke in this call about making AI not sound like it's AI, about coaching reps to do more rep work, about automating the admin, having them use more signals, all of that. How do we know we're talking about actually building a car versus figuring out a better horse? How do we apply AI to actually the car stuff versus having our horses go faster and eat more and I don't know, whatever the horses do more? What we love about our best reps is preparation diligence. Best reps are always ready, always prepared, always know what's up. What is preparation diligence? It's data volume, as we talked about, plus diligence. Well, guess what? AI has both. It has all the data, and it doesn't go on vacations, doesn't sleep, doesn't whatever. It has all the diligence there is to be had. As you, Kerry, said, human connection only happens after what 80-90% of the purchase or the buying process was already done, which means that 90% that happens before you need the human connection times data volume and diligence, which is preparation of a best reps, is fully automatable today with the current technology. And we talk about AI not using lower cap, upper cap, etc. That's today. The cutting edge today will actually sound, look, and talk way better than I do. In fact, we are playing with virtual AI avatars that look like me, and you won't actually know even today that it's me or not me on the call right now. And so I think what nobody is thinking about, what happens when we have AI so good that it can take 6 cents intense signals and call on every customer in market while we haven't finished this phone call. Like, people are not talking about what happens when you can apply compute scale with the technology that actually is possible today, when you can win the market by the time you wake up tomorrow, when AI can replicate the job of 5 of your best reps, not 500, but scale it to if you had 50,000 humans working at the same time. Companies will change, markets will change. Companies will win markets overnight, and this economy is not ready for that.
Well, I'm not sure what to do with that right now.
So do we all retire? I mean, do we all just go on do we all just go on the beach and all of us just do AI avatars here to meet today?
We actually play with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't suck.
I think to your point though, one, I've said this before, I think it's worth saying again, almost nobody's in market for whatever it is that you sell, and there's almost nothing that you can do to change that in the short term. Right? You can certainly be changing it in the long term, but we don't spend very much money on that in B2B because it doesn't fit very nicely with our ROI calculations and those kinds of things. So we don't do much of anything on the long term, and that's not what we're talking about in this session. But in the short term, we act as if we can cause buyers to go into market when I think we all know that that's not actually true. What you can do is capture the ones that you are. So it seems to me like what Oleg just said, and I think what others have alluded to here also, is that we have to be very, very good at identifying the ones that are in market, when they will be in a real buying process and amenable to a conversation with us. And then consider things like, the reason that a lot of people who are part of buying processes don't want to talk to a human is because they don't actually want to be sold while they're deciding. They have got a difficult process of coming to a consensus as a buying team internally, and they don't want outside influence on that. But would they look at an AI agent differently in that respect than they look at a human? Would they, an AI agent that they could simply turn off or ignore and not feel a human emotion about, would they feel differently about that? Could they be more influenced by that? There's a thought. And maybe has nothing to do, Sriya, with what you wanted to talk about, but there it is. You're up next.
Yeah, I think one point I wanted to make clear is that state of AI right now is that it is not 100% accurate. And I think any platform, any tooling, any person that tells you that either has not used AI before or they're just trying to sell you something that doesn't work. So one thing that's very important to acknowledge is that AI still hallucinates. And when you're implementing this, and if you want to stand out from the noise, it's very important to have that human in the loop. And it's very important that we're not taking that out completely. And a second aspect is I get a lot of people that come and they're like, I just want to send like hundreds of thousands of email. I want to personalize at scale. I want deep personalization. Let's talk about that list building first, right? Let's talk about that ICP. Because right now, as we're seeing as well, email deliverability rates, especially you're seeing Google is marking things as spam. You don't want that to happen. And I think we are all kind of getting smarter as humans as well. I can tell when something is AI generated. So sometimes I even say, do you even need that AI generated line? Like maybe our platform for you, it's just about getting those signals and doing that deep research, and your messaging can be very straightforward. So think about that like personalization outreach at the end, I would say, and let's think about the whole process end to end and how we can actually leverage AI in a way that's not just fully automating everything, but still assist the SDR or AE in a way of replacing them. Because if you come with that sort of mindset, you're not keeping your best people in the loop and you're giving that power to something that's still not at 100% accuracy. So I think that's like the big word of caution I'd still tell everyone. AI still hallucinates, it still makes mistake, and how can platforms like we all have today help, still use the benefits of it without, making mistakes or having to snafu on an email that embarrasses you in front of your clients.
Important reality check, especially when our brands are at stake in these communications. Of course, and again, having managed over my career thousands of these frontline BDR, SDR types, your brand was always and is always very, very much at risk in those conversations. So it ain't new that it's at risk. It's a different kind of risk. And one could ask the question whether people would be more forgiving of an AI that said goofy things than they are of your SDR who says they're goofy things. I don't know the answer to that question, but it's one we might think about. Howard.
Yes. So lots been said. So I want to call out 2 points. First of all, Rohan made a very valid point, which is everybody's going to have this data. Everybody's going to have intent data. Everybody's going to get this signal. That's one thing we know for sure, being in technology for the last 25 years. It's just growing. It's expanding. We're going to be inundated with data. So everybody's going to be doing some form of outreach based on data. Now, I'm going to pick on you for a moment, Heath. You said sales sucks. Nobody wants to do that outreach. Nobody wants to be denied or rejected. Sales doesn't suck. Sales doesn't suck when you're talking to somebody who wants to talk to you. Sales does not suck when you're being a helper. And I think we have to reposition our sales teams as helpers. They're buyer enablers. They're there to help people make very complicated purchase decisions, which could impact their company or their job. And yes, people want to go 80% of the way and not talk to a human being, but at some point, I need someone to consult me on a very important decision that I'm going to make. And I need that salesperson informed. I need that person to be an expert on my problem, on the technology that they're talking about, on their competitors' technology, so that they can be a helper. And guess what? Those salespeople, they love what they're doing because they're helpers. They get invigorated, they get excited, and they have a passion for it. We need to create more of those people. We need to enable them through this technology to better connect with their buyers.
I love that point. It's something that we're talking about a lot in our research and thought leadership content, that if we take off the blinders that we've had on for a long time that have us believe that our BDRs are converting somebody into something that they weren't otherwise going to be, that I think never happens. We sometimes prevent them from being good prospects, but I don't think we ever convert them to being them if they weren't already intending to be. What they really need to be is buyer enablers. Like, that term, I think, is a spectacular one. It would come with removing the quotas for generating meetings, for instance. So, Mary Kay, should we do that?
There's a strong possibility, yes. I think actually just we're repeating so many of the same themes here, which is exciting. Knowing your own data first is where I would start with this. Somebody mentioned your ICP, your persona, and knowing the stage of engagement. The promise for AI internally in just figuring out how to position yourself, what messages are working, what messages aren't working, that's the answer to who said buyers get 80 some odd % to the decision before they even want to engage, right? Like, I believe that for sure. And we see that in market. So do competitors, right? We're all using the same information. So if a buyer is getting all the way to, I know I want to buy this, and then they're requesting, okay, now I'm ready to buy, and you just have to take me the last 10%, which is going to come down to price negotiation, et cetera. That means that whatever you're supplying them on your website in their automated, even chat bots, buyers would rather engage with a chat bot than a live person because they can prompt it to give them exactly what they want. So make sure that you're gathering the right intent signals and then supplying the best content. And I think companies are still really struggling with basic content based on those intent signals. So, let's figure it out internally before we expect the buyer to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And since we're on a buyer enablement theme in a panel discussion on prospecting, I think we win the day. I mean, I think that's phenomenal. I wouldn't have expected to get there. And I think that's really, really great. So there are a lot of people listening to this, watching this. I think in the last 15 minutes, we should probably talk about how and why all of the people watching and listening to this should adopt not our particular technologies, but adopt this approach that we're talking about. I think we agree, and every head has been nodding when we've talked about the fact that you're not going to get somebody to go into market if they're not already there. Your BDR, SDR certainly isn't going to do that. What they can do is make sure that you capture, or what we can do is make sure that we capture all of the potential buyers that are there and put our best foot forward, enabling those buyers. So how do we, for all the folks that are listening and watching this, what's the argument for going down that path, and what's the order in which we go down that path? How do we help them understand, what do I do next in my organization? And Heath, you were the next one with your hand up. Probably didn't have any intention of talking to that point, but there it is.
No, I think it actually does. 'Cause I think, Howard, you were spot on. And that's exactly what I was driving into, right? Is like, in today's environment, unfortunately, like, the sales environment is not the best, right? I think the environment you're talking about is the end all be all goal, right? If we can actually get reps to actually enable and actually be like a partner with our buyers. Unfortunately, most of the market today, it's, hey, reps, make more phone calls, send more emails, right? It's just this spray and pray, and the reps don't want to do that. And I think, to that point of like the how, I think, Oleg, I love that you have this like big vision. I'm going to challenge that, because I think by the time that we're actually able to have AI scalable to that point, there's also going to be security that's going to be able to prevent it, to where people can automatically say, turn it off, I don't want it, just like they don't want spam today. And so I think that the real focus is exactly what you said, Howard. And to bring this full circle with what you said, Rohan, is how do we actually use AI to enable reps to where they can actually become better product experts, to where they can actually answer the right questions that the buyer actually cares about, to where they can actually provide solutions. And I think the way, to answer your question, Kerry, that you go about that, it goes back to what I said first, is like, know your ICP, right? And that is the first most important piece. After you know your ICP, know your data. And then it's actually, how do you structure that data to actually enable your revenue teams to actually focus on the things that matter, right? And product led, it's about the moments that matter on the product experience side. That's the same exact adoption we need to have on the rep side, is like, where are those moments that matter? And how are we actually putting sales in the right position rather than forcing buyers, right? That's where we're creating that friction. And so I think that's the next piece, is then the enablement side of it. And we're only talking about one side of the revenue bow tie, right? That's the actual like top of the funnel. I think now the next piece of that is like, how do you actually focus on where compounding growth happens? And that's on retention, expansion, upselling, and really capitalizing on that LTV. I think that where AI, and I think where it's going to be very beneficial, especially in this future, is that the market is not the market it used to be back in the days of like grow at all cost. I think the market now, it's like, how do you actually make sure you're capturing the right customers? And then how do you make sure that you're actually unlocking as much value and potential with those customers? And you do that by providing recurring impact, which means we're solving their problems on a daily basis.
Rohan.
Yeah. I'll do two things. I'll challenge Kerry, I'll challenge your point that a lot of outbound can only convert existing people or people already looking for a solution into customers. And I'll challenge it because I've seen it work. I think it's harder to do over email, definitely. I think over video, you can do it over a call. It's a lot easier. You can get people aware of a certain problem. And then, then that goes into a conversation about what your solution does. And enterprises will take longer. That'll be a year to, year and a half, but it can start the conversation. So I will challenge that you can actually create demand.
Here, I'll give you, you can start that conversation, as long as we do stipulate we're talking in most.
They need to have a problem that that they care about and that you can potentially address. But yeah, so I'll do that. And then the second piece is, I think, in terms of just like, why should the audience think, how should the audience think about AI, especially in their outbound piece? I think, a lot of people think of AI and saying, hey, look, let's get rid of our SDR team. Like, it's actually the opposite. You need to invest in better talent, because now any of the processes that your outbound team creates is going to be scaled, and they can be 5, 10x more efficient. And so I think, investing in strong talent is going to be really important for the outbound teams. And then obviously, once you do get that, and once you are ready to scale a process up, that's when you start investing in all the different data tools, signals. If it's, if you're doing calls, dialers, things like that, that really automate different processes that you can have. But I would say maybe investing in talent is something that's under talked about, that becomes even more important with AI.
Which you can use AI to do.
And you can use it to coach and
to
make your talent better. Right, exactly.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, but so if we do adhere to this idea that even if we do, say, launch a new buying process in an account in B2B, it's going to be a year or so before that thing turns into business in most B2B, in the typical B2B case. Who do we know who has an outlook, a measurement strategy that allows them to pay to do something today that's not going to turn into revenue for a year that involves, I mean, right, you guys get what I'm getting at? Like, how many BDRs are you going to hire to go out and produce revenue that comes in a year and a half from now? Thoughts? I mean, it seems like we should. We're saying we should, I think, right? Kevin, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this kind of answers the question, although I had my hand raised for a different reason. But I think something that Howard mentioned that maybe I'll challenge, and then also Kerry, something you mentioned around prioritization is on Howard's point, it was just like, if everyone's using the same signals, it's all kind of commoditized. And then so a few things you can do to or get around that, and also that like help with prioritization is like you have your own signals, you have your own calls, you have your own website visits, you have people who are engaging with your team on social channels. Like those are all kind of first party owned signals that no one else has. It's like you have that. And so typically those signals are someone's further along the buying cycle if they're engaging with you at that point. And so that's where I would start. It's like, this is the lowest part of the funnel. It's the highest converting. Like that's the way to prioritize. And then the game of, for marketing, marketing myself, the game is to like create more of those signals, because that's what helps feed your SDR team and your pipe gen team. And then as those signals dry up, or as you hit ceilings, then it's just kind of like, okay, let's expand the aperture and go to the next signal, and like and figure out how we enable our team to run those playbooks from there. So that's how I would address the prioritization question, which maybe gets to the question you just asked, but I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, somewhat. Oleg.
So if I'm gonna go contrarian again, Kerry. If I were AI right now and I would be summarizing this call, I would hear like 55 reasons to not use AI for prospecting, and like 5 reasons to use it. Actually, I'm semi-aligned with that. Heath, to your point, that there will be security layer that will say, oh, this is AI knocking on your door, ignore it kind of thing. For sure, that's already semi-happening with spam filters, but you'll get with video calls, you'll get with all kinds of stuff. And then, however, to your point of salespeople being AI, being buyer enablers, buyer helpers that are as useful as it gets. And obviously, what Mary mentioned about humans rather than engaging with chatbots, because you get your answer now quickly, precisely, and without human interpretation. Are SDRs and AEs the best place to start enabling AI? To answer Kerry's question of where do we start? We found that the most content that AI can be helpful with is not on cold outreach. It's on summarizing thousands of pages of technical content, NSC and support tickets and everything, to show up to a call with my human account executive so that I can help them be the best version of themselves. So I want to throw it there right now that maybe prospecting is not the best place to start. Maybe enabling humans to know how to be the best customer enabler, or to be there for them, helping them be that special person helping make a very hard technical decision that my career depends on. So AI-based SCs, AI-based services, AI-based service consultants, AI-based overlay roles would be the best thing. And by the way, who has too many human overlays right now in the organization? Nobody. So that's that. Thanks.
Got it. So the only thing I would answer back to that, Oleg, is that, yeah, that might be a best use right now, but we're talking about prospecting here. And so if we're talking about prospecting, it seems like we do. I think one thing, and Gabe, you're up next, and you can tell me if you agree. But I think what we do have some consensus on here is that we've got to do everything we can, at the very least, to get our human beings engaging with the right other human beings on the other end. And that means not just fit kind of things, but also timing, and making sure that that small percentage of accounts that might be in market are the ones that we are engaging with. So maybe if you could just, thought on that, plus a bit of summary, because we've only got a couple of minutes left, of what should people walk away from this from? And we'll put that all on your shoulders and then Ruth's.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, to Oleg's point and to your point, I think, we're talking about prospecting, and a lot of prospecting is outbound focused. And I think we all agree that using AI for outbound phone calls, I mean, it's illegal in the US right now, unless, that's not always for all of them, but we all know that and I promise I don't work for Nooks, by the way. Rohan's awesome. But the way we see it with our clients, 92% of our leads that we're creating each and every single day from every vertical out there is done from the phone. And, I know the big orgs as well, huge data companies, I know their orgs well, 90% of their outbound SDRs are booking meetings from the phone. So I just don't see AI taking that over. But to your point, I see AI enabling and getting our reps to be more as human as possible, and having all the intent signals as possible, and having the best messages and having the best role play tools as humanly possible. But I don't see it right now. I want a hoverboard and I want a DeLorean that flies too, but I don't see it taking over my phone calls as we speak. So that's just our position on it. And I think, that's how we think.
Howard?
I just want to add that, yes, it's really exciting that we're focused on human beings connecting with human beings. And it's not about the AI taking over the phone call and talking to the human beings today. It's about enabling our human sellers to be the best versions of themselves so that they can present a version of themselves that is most helpful to the buyer. I love 92% coming from outbound phone calls. That's amazing. But what we need to focus on is when people connect with those buyers, let's make sure that they're connecting with a seller that knows what they're talking about, because nothing can ruin your brand more than when someone actually connects with a representative from your company and they have a horrible experience and that person doesn't know about your product or service or the business problems that you're attempting to solve. So let's invest in that. And what I loved about NCAA football this weekend, this was the first time where the coaches could make audibles into the quarterback's helmet. That is real-time generative AI. That is the technology that Revenue.io got patents on 7 years ago. It's all about real-time. How do we enable people to sell better in the moment? How can we make sure that quarterback reads that defense in the right way and is getting the assists from their coach?
I love that. We have 2 minutes now. So Ruth and Sreya, if you could split those 2 minutes evenly and send folks away with a perfect finish, that would be great.
Pressure. Well, as I listen to all of you guys talking, I'm just so reminded of when marketing automation arrived. What was it, 20, 25 years ago? Yeah. And we were having very similar conversations. When do we use it? How do we apply it? What's it good for? Is our old process going to go away? And we're saying the same thing. As I kind of said earlier, we're trying to get to the right customers, ICP. We're trying to understand their processes, get them the right messaging, and convert them with great relevant content and great conversations. So we're gonna keep going, applying AI at every stage of the selling process and the buying process, and I'm really excited about the opportunity for prospecting.
Thanks, Ruth. Sorry, if you could take us home.
Yeah, I think just said it in the chat as well. I think how we can use AI in prospecting, it's not to really cut corners, but to use that to your advantage, right? Like use that to go, if you're already going the extra mile, go even further. And that's how you will win deals. And that's how you can differentiate yourself. So definitely use AI in prospecting, but use it to your advantage, not to cut corners.
Perfect. So I think that's the time we have. This is a great discussion. It could obviously go on for substantially longer and probably would be well received if it did. But with that, Julia, I think we're back to you.
Thank you so much, Kerry.
Thanks,
people are messaging us like crazy and lots of questions for you, actually. One of them is, Kerry, where is the area that AI is not solving for? Where is the gap to make the stack more useful now?
Where's the gap to make, I think in our understanding of what we're trying to do. So we talked about it today. We need to enable buyers and find the ones that have the business problems that we solve, help them recognize those, and then work their way through a buying process. If what we're trying to do is, if what we think we're trying to do is create buyers out of nothing, then I think we're not going to be using the tech the right way.
Awesome. Howard, do you want to contribute? I just see your hand.
Oh, sorry. I think my hand's just been stuck on raise. So
Keith.
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing for especially everybody here that's listening to take away with, right, is with this AI summit, it's about go-to-market teams, right? And we focus a lot on sales today. But if you leave away with anything on how you can actually leverage this from a prospecting perspective, it's across all the different go-to-market teams. The more that we can align the way that we sell, the way that we market, the way that we build our products, the way that we do customer success, that is where the true value of AI can be leveraged. And it is going to be used for prospecting, right? Using customer success for how do you actually provide better enablement for new users. Product, how do you actually create better onboarding to get your users to that aha moment? And then equipping your sales teams to actually be better enablers. I think that is a very, very important thing that we need to walk away with.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Kerry, an ongoing question. What's the best way to support you? LinkedIn, Sixth Sense.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and then sixthsense.com/research. We have a lot of research. It's all free, no forms, nothing to fill out. You don't have to tell us who you are.